And welcome to CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. I'm David Sams. Sports Illustrated calls her the greatest winner in the history of women's basketball. She's a 4-time WNBA champion, 6-time WNBA All-Star, 2-time NCAA champion, and get this, an Olympic gold medalist not once but twice. Oh, and should I also mention that she was recently inducted into the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. And to think that she gave all of this up, all of this glory at the very peak of her career for a purpose far greater than that of being a sports icon. I'm talking about Maya Moore. And today she's here with her husband, Jonathan, whom she met the summer before college. Now, at the time, Jonathan, get this, was serving a 50-year prison sentence after being arrested for a shooting and burglary, a crime he did not commit. And we're gonna get into this. And he was just 16 years old. Years later, Maya and Jonathan would fall in love, and she would leave her iconic career in sports to get this conviction overturned. Bottom line, there was no physical evidence that ever connected him to the crime. He was wrongfully convicted, and he was released after spending 23 years behind bars. Crazy, isn't it? Well, they're here to talk about that, and the crazy thing is this setback was nothing but a setup for one of the greatest comebacks in social justice history. And boy, I'll tell you, when I got into this interview with him, I just couldn't let him go. We originally booked it for 30 minutes, but I just kept going on and on because I just love them so much. And their book is now out. It's called Love and Justice, a story of triumph on 2 different courts, where Maya and Jonathan share their behind-the-scenes journey of their trials, their triumphs, and their faith. You're not going to want to miss this one, folks, so let's get right to it. Maya and Jonathan, welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Fantastic. You know, I was just so blown away with your story and following your story and your stories. And it's just amazing the direction that God has taken you all. So I just want to start by, first of all, Maya, recognizing your great uncle. I'd like to talk to him a minute because it seems to me like the start of this story begins with your great uncle. So let's dedicate the next minute or two to him and tell me about his story and why in the world it had such an impact on you.
Man, so my great uncle, just a guy who's full of life. My great aunt, so my grandmother's sister, married Hugh Flowers, and Hugh Flowers and my great aunt moved to the middle of Missouri, raising their kids there for a choir directing and music teaching job at a HBCU back in the day. And so they started to get roots right there in mid-Missouri, even though they're from Chicago. And he just started to spread that life through working with students, working in music, but also in the background, he had volunteered through a choir program with prison ministry, just kind of behind the scenes. And that's just what he did. And so when my mom found out she was having me, she raised me as a single parent. She wanted to move me to be around that family to grow up with. And so my mom moved. She was born in Chicago, went to school in LA, and then raised me in Missouri. And so I got to grow up around that family. And when Jonathan was wrongfully convicted, taken to jail and then to prison after the wrongful conviction, a year or two into his struggle of just trying to figure out what is going on, he connects with my great uncle in this prison ministry program. And my great uncle sees Jonathan and sees life in him and potential in him and just fathers him really and introduces Jonathan and his story to our family. And that's how I learned about Jonathan's story when I was 18 and Jonathan was 17. But Jonathan was 27 and I was 18 when we met for the first time in the Jefferson City Correctional Center. Mm-hmm.
So Jonathan, why were you there?
Why was I in prison?
Yes.
Well, I was in prison for a crime that I did not commit, and evidence was withheld. They coach witnesses. There's a comedy of errors that happen, and just really bad things. And I got convicted, and I got sent to maximum security prison, and that is where I was at for 23 and a half years.
And this was a 50-year sentence?
Actually, a total of 65.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they had, so the sentencing structure was calculated. I had 2 25-year terms, and they were to be served consecutively, but then they had an additional 15-year term that was to be run concurrent with them. So I had 50 years and an additional 15 that was running in concurrent with them. I wasn't scheduled to see the parole board to 2047, and not guaranteed to go home, but I wasn't guaranteed to see the parole board till then.
So you met Papa Flowers in prison, and what kind of life did he breathe into you?
Man, he was a father figure to me. I kind of imagine myself being like a lonely tree out in the desert with no other trees around me, and he came in my life like a rain cloud, and that stayed over me and prayed over me, and like even his thoughts like gave me moisture and life. Like he gave me an identity as a man, like and he affirmed me, and he was such a great leader and such an example of a great leader, and gave me examples of what self-sacrifice was. He was in prison ministry for 30 years before he met me.
Yeah,
like this man. Oh my! The lives that he has transformed, and I am blessed to be one of them, because he did that for me. Like he was, like it's so funny. I asked him to be my father figure, and I said, "Will you be my dad, man?" And I thought he was going to tell me no. It's like, well, I really can't be your dad. And he was right. I couldn't be mad at him, but he said, "Yeah, of course." It was so formative for me.
Yeah, I really bring this up because there are a lot of folks that give a lot of time. A lot of my friends give a lot of time to prison ministry, and we hear about these things in passing, and we hear about them in church every once in a while. Yeah. But I just really wanted to spend a couple of minutes just hearing your story so that the audience could really see the impact that these prison ministries can in fact have.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Something we're very passionate about, because the whole essence, I think, of the good news, the gospel, Jesus coming down, is to restore relationships, right? God is a relational God. That is the point of why we're alive, is to be in relationship with him, with each other, with creation, and bringing that shalom and restoring that right relationship, everything in right relationship. That is the reason of why we follow Jesus, is to restore all those things and ask him to help us to restore all those broken things. And our justice system is very broken. It is very, especially American justice is very punitive. It's about slapping sentences on people. It's about appearing like justice is happening, but it's not restorative and nearly the way it needs to be. And so I think part of what needs to be reformed in our justice system is a whole approach and a mindset of how do we put our leaders in place to make justice restorative and to help communities get to a place where we're preventing the harm done. And so prison ministry folks kind of stand in the gap as we work for these systematic changes to help be that restorative lifeblood, holding it down, until some of these broader changes and cultures can be shifted in how we approach justice. And so Papa was just one of those warriors standing in the gap for all those years.
Yeah.
And he is just, I know he passed away shortly after Jonathan got home, but I know he would be so happy to see the fruit of just one person that he touched. And we hope we're making him proud.
And I would also add to that, like for anyone doing prison ministry, it wouldn't be wrong to look at it like it's an investment in the kingdom. We will invest in stocks and bonds and real estate, but when it comes to people, especially people we don't know, we look at it. We look at it kind of difficult. Like it's not just something that you can throw some money at. It requires time. It requires a conversation. It requires taking time, sitting down, having a face-to-face conversation, and exploring, like, what is life like? What was life like? What is your plans for the future? And then sharing, like a person on the outside, sharing your life. What do you do? Things that you think are boring and routine, like getting up in the morning. If you're living in a state where there's snow, like, how did you get the snow off your car? What did you do? What did you use? What are the chemicals that you use? Because all that information, like, it helps prisoners visualize what life is like out there, because a lot of prisoners didn't have someone to really invest in them like they need. And like they're below zero on the board. Like, anyone willing to invest in them is such a huge and important thing. And it's not like you have to be the richest person on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to have a heart for people and want to understand people and just have conversation. Like, that is the key to all of it.
Mm.
And from that conversation, you will learn from their actions if they're really listening to you, if they really want to change. Like, you can't help everybody, but like, if you help 1 in 10, if you help 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, like, you are doing such great work for the kingdom, such great work, because you never know what a person may become or what they do when they get out. There was a guy who got out of prison and saved an officer. Like, this officer was in a gunfight. This ex-felon, ex-prisoner, grabbed this officer and pulled him to safety. Like, if that guy had not got out, nobody treated him, somebody imparted in him, that officer may have died. Like, that's just one example. There's so many examples of prisoners that somebody has invested in. They have gotten out, they're starting businesses. They're living life well. They're doing so many great things. They're family men, family women. They have great jobs. They build our roads, our cities, our homes. You never know what they do.
Mm-hmm.
But all that starts from someone investing in them and spending time with them and talking to them about what's important in life.
So what role, Jonathan, did faith play? Here, you're wrongfully convicted. You know it. You know what the facts happen to be. You were convicted by an all-white jury. So now you're behind bars. Were you, first of all, were you a person of faith then? If you were, you had to be mad at God. I mean, I wouldn't have been too happy. Tell me what you went through in that situation.
So my grandmother was a gardener, and in a lot of senses, she worked out in the garden. She talked to me about the process of planting seeds and what they grow into and how to take care of them and eating them. So she would plant seeds in me when I was young. She would sit down and read the Action Bible with me, and I could see the pictures and see what's going on. I would see Samson and Noah being swallowed by a whale, and like all of those great stories in the Bible. And she was planting seeds. I didn't know it. So when I got locked up, and she sent me a Bible, and she said, whatever you do, read you a psalm and a proverb a day, and you pray, and you find God, amen. And like I heard her, but my faith wasn't my own. But my faith started to grow, and my faith started to become my own. And that whole time I was wrestling with anger and frustration and anxiety and fear and dealing with trauma, the trauma of the prison environment. And like, why is me? Depression, all of these things that grip my life. And I cussed at God. I'm talking I had a real conversation. Like, these things, I will not repeat what I said to him in private. And it wasn't just on one occasion, it was on multiple occasions. And every time, like, God met me with peace and led me to something else. Like, don't give up. Like, I understand, I know. Like, I literally felt that. Like, I remember one day I cried myself to sleep, but it was so weird. I felt like I was being held. But I know nobody was around me, and I didn't want nobody. I had a little bitty narrow bed. There wasn't nobody getting in the bed with me, But it's like, just I can't explain it and describe it. I felt cared for even in all of that. And like I was heard and I was understood. And God didn't get mad at me and hit me with a lightning bolt or send a CO in the cell to thrash me or take my health or take my life. Like he just continued to affirm me and reassure me. Like, I understand. I know it. I see it. Just be patient. Just wait. Just be patient.
I guess that's called keeping the faith for sure. Let me ask you now. You were just coming out of high school when this story began, correct?
I was just coming out of high school when I met Jonathan, and he was about 10 years into his wrongful conviction at that point.
This is before your basketball stardom started, of course, college and then WNBA. What was it that attracted you to his story? Not to him personally, but to his story and what he was going through. What was the magnet?
Yeah. Looking back at how I grew up and just the influences in my life, my mom, hard worker, shows up for you. My great aunt and uncle and their kids who were like my aunts and uncles, just people that showed up and tried to do what they could to help you. A lot of teachers in my family. And so I think just growing up, not realizing how much that faithfulness was impacting my vision of what life was about. And so when my godparents, Sherry and Reggie, who Sherry is Papa and my great aunt's oldest daughter, when Sherry and Reggie found out about Jonathan's story, they responded with compassion and like a holy outrage of like, this is not okay. They got his files and they looked at the facts of his case and they were like, how could something like this happen? This is so wrong. We have to do something. And so they didn't necessarily know what to do. They're regular folk, just wonderful people, right? Working jobs, trying to raise a family, but every weekend for 15 years
Straight,
they showed up for Jonathan just to be there for him, to try to help him, to just be his family. A lot of talk to him, conversations, letting him into our family's life, Jonathan letting us into his heart. And so a couple years into that journey with my godparents, they invited me to go meet Jonathan because they were telling me about his case and his story. And I, as an 18-year-old, had no idea about our mass incarceration problem in America, just how many people are in prison who are wrongfully convicted or in prison because of a punitive spirit. And so I'm just learning and trying to keep in touch, like, keep me updated with this case. I'll be praying, right? And so when I finally got a chance to meet Jonathan, I walked into the prison. I was with my godparents. I was a little nervous because I had never been into a prison, but I was also kind of calm at the same time because, I have a relationship with the Lord at the time and I trust my godparents and I'm with them. And so I sit down and I'm just present with Jonathan and talk to him, get to know him. And after that moment, we just became friends and kept in touch, and we have been friends ever since. And so that's really what drew me to his life and his case, was because it was wrong what was happening to him and he needed help, but also because he's a person. And the more I got to know him as a person, the more I was like, this is an amazing human that is blessing my life. Despite the circumstances, he has blessed us just as much as we've blessed him, and getting to watch him walk in this fight and how he was a light in a place of death. Like, he could have chosen to crawl up in a hole, be mad at everybody and everything, but he fought his way out of that depression, grew in his faith in his relationship with God. Other godly men who were in the prison, there are godly men in prison, by the way, who mentored and big brothered him, and he became a light, taught himself law, started advocating for himself, Jonathan did, and advocating for other men, helping them get home before he got home, because that's just the type of person he is. And so I was just being blessed with our friendship behind the scenes. As my basketball career was getting better and better and higher, I was also having a front row seat to this excruciating, painful, but extremely inspiring story that was happening behind the scenes with Jonathan's fight for freedom.
So how did you two work together over those years? And Jonathan, I know you basically became a lawyer in prison.
Got his paralegal certificate, like, while being wrongfully convicted. So that's a whole nother, that's in the book if you guys want to check the book out, Love and Justice. But he did some incredible studying in there and became so good at law.
So how did you two work together and connect the dots over that period of time?
I would say it wasn't just us working. Like we had a team of people. Reggie and Sherry were so critical in this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie reinvestigated my whole case on his own dime. He traveled for hours to go talk to witnesses just to see what they had to say. He put timelines together. Reggie and Sherry went and met with various different lawyers and law students. I wrote a case summary up so people could see it, and we put together a website. And then, like, Maya got informed; she got to see everything, and some of her people got involved with it. Like, everybody started to talk about it and basically just digest it and dissect it and look at the whole case from top to bottom. And like we vetted it and we combed through it, we sifted it together, and it took years. And then we had other lawyers that were coming in that would confirm what we knew, or also share something that we didn't know, or talk about the difficulty of this procedure or that vehicle to get back in court. So I mean, it wasn't just us. Like, the Lord put great people around us. We had a great team.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, for the last hearing, I lost 11 appeals, but the 12th one I had 4 lawyers, and they were all in the courtroom. I handpicked all of them, and they were for all different roles and different purposes. But like they made sure that we were informed the whole way.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And now, were you had to be following Maya's career this entire time as well? You must have been so proud.
Yeah, I won a bunch of push-ups off them gay people hating on Maya. So man, do you kind of go Minnesota? You want to put some push-ups on it? Let's talk about these push-ups. Let's do that. Bet some. I had this one guy in the chow hall line. You know, before you eat, you got to wash your hands. You want to make sure like everything's good, especially if you raise right. So he was in the chow hall line getting ready to go in the cafeteria. He's like, hey, but then he calmed down. He realized, like, oh, I owe him some push-ups. I said, let me get one of push-ups. He's all, get that. I was like, don't bet against mine. Don't do it. Yeah. And we would have, some of our, I was in some places, in some environments in there. One was in the ITC, another one was in the reentry program, where I would talk to the staff, and they would allow us to take a big screen TV, and we would have game days where we could pull the big TVs out and watch them together. We make popcorn. People would be cooking like different foods, and we make an event out of it. And we'd rally around the TV. Some haters, some supporting it, but it was great.
Oh, that's fantastic. And Maya, you know, when you walked away from basketball, maybe that's not the way to put it. When you walked into your future, how difficult was that? And do you? And I know you have no regrets, but you did give up several years of great playing in the WNBA.
Yeah, that was an unexpected part of my journey. There was, I think, a turning point. There was a turning point in the summer of 2016 where our coaches really encouraged us as players to lean into our humanity and to stand up and to say something about there was just violence going on in our community, and like Philando Castile was killed. There was just a lot going on in the Minnesota area, in the Twin Cities area, and we decided to say something about the pain that was happening. And I think it really sparked and gave courage to other athletes across the league, across other sports, to remember their humanness, and that this game that we play is not what life is about. Life is about what's happening in our communities, and are we taking care of each other? And are people in power and in leadership, actually trying to take care of everyone, and how can we be better?
Mm-hmm.
And so out of that moment in 2016, I got the courage to start speaking about the real life story I was in with Jonathan, because all this time we'd been doing this work behind the scenes. But in 2016, I started to use my platform for his cause. And so I got connected with some folks my agent got me connected with to learn more. I learned more about mass incarceration, the history of it, the role prosecutors play in our justice system. Prosecutors are very, very powerful actors in our justice system. And with Jonathan's advice and encouragement and wisdom, we started a nonprofit called Win with Justice. And so Win with Justice is about redefining what a win is in our justice system. Like we talked about earlier, it's not just about slapping long sentences on people. It's about restorative justice and how do we help our communities thrive. And so, 2016, 2017, 2018, the years are going. We're battling for Jonathan. I'm playing all around the world, winning gold medals, WNBA championships. And so I'm starting to sense like I can't keep this pace up, because what I did and how I invest in what I care about, I'm like all in. I'm not like a half in, half out. And so I was giving so much of myself to this basketball grind and this rhythm and my teams that I played for. And so there came a day in the 2018, 2019 time where I realized I was going to have to step away from my well-being. And in order to be my best self, to be present for Jonathan's fight and just take it 1 year at a time. And so I made that announcement in 2019 that I was stepping away, and it shocked everyone. I mean, I was shocked too, because I was like, I didn't know my story was going to go this way. But when I felt like I had clarity on what I needed to do, and I felt like the Lord was saying it's time to go, I did, because it was the right thing to do. And everything that's happened since has just affirmed like it was the right decision, because it's led so much fruit, so much life, and a journey to restoration that I don't think I would have been able to give myself as fully to if I was committed to the basketball grind that I had been committed to for 20 years, from age 8 to age 28. So it was a wild step, but it's been leading to some wildly good fruit.
Hey, I know a question I got to ask you too. And when did you fall in love?
Depends on who you ask.
Tell me that moment and tell me how it happened, because you guys you started having these connections when you were young, Maya, and gosh, you guys went through this for years. So when was that moment? When did you realize?
It wasn't a moment. It was a process, and processes take time. Like, we got to know each other. We reached for each other, and there was a day that we decided to stop pretending like we ain't like each other as much as we did. I made a flirtatious comment that we not gonna repeat. And she said, "Wait a minute, hold on. We need to have a conversation. What do you mean by that?"
Call them out.
Was you flirting? Or you flirting with me? I was like, well, yeah.
My flirtatious meter was going off, and I was like, listen, we need to talk about this. But
she said, this is for the fellas. She said, I don't hate it. And I said, oh, okay. But I was talking,
in yourself?
Yeah, just, enjoying her time, and like the time we got together, like, it was so funny. Every time we would talk, it's like nothing, everything else around us melted away. Like, even in her life and my life. And it's like those times are so formative and so important, in a relationship, to just have time to just talk. Yeah.
Yeah. We were friends for 6 years.
Yeah.
Before we really started to figure out what does it mean for us to be more than friends and walk with each other.
Yeah.
Being honest about our love for each other. It's hard to, anybody that knows Jonathan will fall in love with him, but it's hard to not see how we wouldn't have moved closer and closer, because love, I think, and friendship is really forged in the fire. Like, when you see people go through hard things and you see their character, you really see what they're made of, and you walk with people day after day, year after year. Like, there's an intimacy, there's a connection that can be forged. And so I love our story in that the foundation of our love is undoubtedly friendship. And that's such a lost art, I think, in our day and age of just knowing how to be friends, right? We're lonely, we're anxious because we don't know how to be friends. We don't know how to cultivate friendships. And what better way to go into a marriage, a love, a partnership than having that bedrock of friendship being forged and proven. And so, yeah, we both worked really, really hard to be good friends to each other. And then that friendship turned to love, and which also was risky, right? Like, we didn't know if Jonathan was ever going to come home.
Yeah.
And so it was excruciating and amazing at the same time of just being able to enjoy the love that we have, but also the agony of knowing what was preventing our love from blossoming and growing into what God is intending it to be because of injustice. And so it was a whole lot, but we are so happy that we have been able to get to the other side in this next chapter of our love story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you left out the important part. And you got married how many days after you got out of prison?
Oh, I know. That was a whirlwind. It was 9.5, 10 days.
I'm like,
It was,
it don't matter.
yeah, it was a whole story. That's in the book too, of just how that all unfolded. And, but we needed to go ahead and get married because we had been together for so long. It was like, let's start our life together.
No more time.
Waste more time. Let's do this thing. And
Just, yeah.
Yeah.
I had proposed to her inside, but I told her, because I wanted to tell her intentions. I told her, I said, but don't say yes. Not right now. She said, I said, well, because here's why. Like, I may never go home, but my goal is to allow you to feel real love. And if a man does not love you like this or anything less than this, like, you can say with confidence, like, that's not for you. Like, but I want you to be free. But I love you, and I'm holding you with an open hand. You may not be the one for me. The Lord may not bring me home, but if He does, I'm here and I'm available. But if you find someone, I will not get in the way.
Oh, that's sweet.
Hush up. You coming home.
Also,
yeah.
So to finish up here, I just want you to convey your thoughts, your hearts to the folks listening to this right now who, we see these stories in the headlines from time to time, the injustice and people locked up for years and finally get out. And it's like, they're headlines. They come and go quickly. And it just seems like this story happens. I don't know how many folks are in prison that shouldn't be. I don't know if it's thousands, tens of thousands. I don't know the number. But just talk to the folks right now and let them know that this is everyone's issue. This is everyone's problem. This is not a black and white issue. This is everyone's issue.
Yeah. A good friend of mine, Ryan Ferguson, he spent about a decade, 8 years, about a decade in JCCC with me. And I watched him come in. I watched him advocate for his case. I watched his story, and I watched him walk out. And I contacted him and hung out with him since he's been out. His father was a realtor and pretty wealthy. And he's white. And he was in school when they pulled up on him in school and arrested him with guns and, like, you name it. Because his co-defendant claimed to have a dream, and then the police fed him information. Like, you wouldn't think a kid like that would go into a situation like that. Like me, I'm from extreme poverty. I'm below the poverty line. Like, it's real easy to gaffle somebody up like that. It can literally happen to anyone, like male or female. All it takes is just for some evidence to come up missing, or to be hid, or an officer to not ask the questions that they should have, not record information, a witness to be coached, evidence to be planted. I mean, there's so many different things. And like in this day and age, like, we need checks and balances. We need, when officers do interrogations, that they need to be recorded. Officers need to have body cams. Just, and not necessarily to police them, but to make sure, like, that the quality of justice is intact and upheld. Like, we definitely need that. Like, a lot of this happens because people cut corners. I won't say nothing is wrong with our I won't say our system is totally broken, but it's the people that come in that bend corners or don't follow through on their job, or don't hold everyone accountable, because of their position and their status, or a person doesn't get full and fair representation. There's so many things that can cause that, and it is an issue that affects everyone, no matter what walk of life you're in, what color you are, what social status, what economic status you're on. Like, it can literally happen to people. Like, now, if you have a particular higher economic status, like, you may get out faster, than somebody who wouldn't, but you can still get gaffled up and locked up.
Yeah. Part of what we are passionate about with Win with Justice is trying to dismantle the prison pipeline. And so you have ways that make the most vulnerable in our society easy, victims of the prison pipeline, where they go to prison. While people are in prison, we don't have enough programs and culture within prisons to help it be a restorative, reformative place. And then on the reentry side, when they're leaving prison, because most people in prison are going to come home and be your neighbor, right? This affects us all. All of us matter because we're all a part of this community. When they reenter into society, what kind of person do you want them to be when they reenter? And so if you are looking to be involved in bringing shalom to our communities, justice is such a huge part of shalom, right? Making everything right. We need to look at the most vulnerable in our society and ask, how did they become the most vulnerable, and what can we do to not make them as vulnerable? The traumas that they endure that lead them to make these decisions that put them in prison, if it's hunger, if it's poverty, if it's broken families, if it's economic injustice that their families have suffered for decades. How do we help people get what they need so that they're not even vulnerable to the prison pipeline? How do we show people who are in prison through programs, through bringing better cultures for the wardens and the COs, and how to humanize prisoners so that then when they leave, they're not more trauma? And then the reentry side, where the programs and organizations and prison ministries and prosecutor offices who are trying to do progressive things that empower these reentry programs so that guys have character development, job skills, guys and men and women, right? A place to go to get help as they reenter into society. This is, I think, something Jesus would be very passionate about, helping the most vulnerable. You see in the Old Testament over and over again, the alien, the widow, the orphan. God gets so mad when people are not treating the stranger, the widow, the orphan, the most vulnerable, when they're not treated well. Like, Israel got in so much trouble in the Old Testament for not taking care of the alien, the orphan, and the widow. And so the heart for the most vulnerable, the people who don't have moms or dads, the people, the most vulnerable in society, the immigrant, the migrant worker, the stranger, right? Like, he says to Israel, don't forget, you were once strangers in Egypt.
Yeah.
So don't treat people the same way you were treated. It's very clear. Like, if we look and we see the heart of God, he's so passionate about the most vulnerable. And so put your heart on the line, put your body on the line with wisdom, with community, and go in there and just do something. Again, it can just be a conversation, and that's super, super meaningful.
And I like to add this to it. Whether you're wrongfully convicted or you're guilty, but prison is a place where you will have to go to. And prison is an environment that in a lot of ways will shape you and form you if you're not careful, you don't have the right people. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a question. Who was the first person that went to heaven with Jesus? It was a convicted criminal on the cross. And like, we don't really see that a lot. We're not really talked about that. Like, we think we have to be all clean and all dressed up, but you can be saved and go to heaven on the cross and be a convicted criminal. Like, Jesus was that mindful to tell someone like that, like, man, today you will be with me in paradise. He didn't tell it to the Pope or the pastor of this mega church or this person down there. He told it to a convicted criminal, which means they have life and they have value too. And like, whether you're guilty or you're innocent, you still get the same treatment in prison. It does not matter. And that needs to be changed.
What would you like our listeners to pray for over you and your ministry?
I would ask for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and for the work that the Lord has for me to do, and to just give us both of us, to give us the right help at the right time as we move forward, and just because it's very heavy, the work that we're doing, and you just can't approach it lighthearted, because there's so much at stake here. So many souls are at stake. So much life is at stake, and like we don't want to play with it. We want to do it right, and like we want to be a blessing. We want to be agents of growth and positive change, and not agents of destruction, or think that we're doing a good thing and we're actually causing harm, because that happens.
Yeah, just that wisdom to know how to be helpful. Also, just continued healing for our family and the trauma that we've been through.
Yeah.
And, trauma doesn't get healed overnight. I mean, unless God says, I'll heal your trauma overnight, but there's also a path of healing that God has created for us to go through. He says when we move in his ways, healing comes. And so just pray that we continue to move in his ways and get the help that we need, and cultivate the life that we need to continue to heal and to thrive. Because we are, but there's still more work to be done to making sure that we are becoming healthier and stronger, so that we can continue to be a light in our community, and just focus on your community. I think sometimes we get so overwhelmed with what's happening all over the world, all over the country, but God says, be a light where you're rooted. Start in your own house, and then move out to your neighborhood, and then maybe move out to your city, and you'll see God moving. But start where your feet are.
I'll also add this. I would ask for the Lord to shine more light on people who are system impacted, that are out in society, that are doing well, living successful lives, and being an important part of the community, whether that's getting up or paying taxes, getting up, going to work. Like, we need to hear more about those cases.
Celebrating the success.
We need to celebrate them. We don't want to keep hearing the same thing. Oh, so and so committed a crime. We got to be tougher on crime. Like, let me ask you this: how many in the past 5 years? How many news articles or shows have you seen a person who got out from prison and is living a successful life, a business owner? How many have you seen? But they're there. I know a bunch of them. But you'll hear on the news, so-and-so committed a crime. He got out on parole. We got to be tougher on crime. You'll hear that. Like that. The negative needs to be, the narrative needs to be more balanced. And I'm just praying that the Lord opens that door, and so if that's what he wants, to just, if that's his will, to just showcase people like that.
It's the truth. Yeah. Let the truth be seen of the hope.
Yeah.
Because our economy runs on fear, right?
Yeah.
So, but God's economy runs on hope and truth. So let us be people that pass on those stories of hope and truth that are actually happening.
Amen.
Well, one thing I'm thinking about, Maya and Jonathan, is that we have, we're really into mental health and into wellness. Yeah. And we have therapy.cc.
Okay.
And I think what I'd like to do to help you all with what you're trying to do is to give you all 100 scholarships, mental health scholarships. To give out to the guys and the women who are starting over again.
That's exactly.
So we need stuff like that. Oh my God! Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll work out the details offline here, but that'll give them online therapy. It'll give them also a cognitive behavioral therapy dashboard and a membership assistance program. But it gives them somebody to talk to, and these are all licensed therapists. We have like 30,000. So
I had prayed about something like this.
God.
Unbelievable.
So good.
Thank you. Good grief.
I love your story. I hear your hearts, and I see what you're trying to do. And if we can help in a little way, I'd like to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Man.
Well, it's been so wonderful doing this. I know we're a few minutes over. I could go on for another half hour, but thank you so much for what you do, and we so appreciate you. And thanks for keeping the faith during all those years, because look what God did on the other side of all this, and
that's right.
And it's going to multiply, and there's going to be such a ripple effect, and we really appreciate y'all.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The book is titled Love and Justice, a story of triumph on two different courts. Thank you, Maya. Thank you, Jonathan. Wow, what a couple, what a story. These two truly do define contagious influencers of America. And please do check out their website to learn more about their great works and their ministry at winwithjustice.org. winwithjustice.org. This is episode number 260 or 70 or whatever it is. You can see all of our great episodes at contagiousinfluencers.com, where we have our website, and also we're on every platform there is now, and still one of the top rated shows on iHeart in the spirituality section. But please do rate and review us and share our podcast with other folks. That's how they find out about us. And also check out our radio show website. We've got all kinds of goodies over there for you at KeepTheFaith.com. KeepTheFaith.com. I'm David Sams. Until next time, go out there and live that life in living color, because it sure is a heck of a lot more interesting than living in black and white. I'll see you next time.